Well, hello and welcome to episode number 323 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and on today's show we find out about the latest news from Boeing regarding the MAX, an unusual alliance between BA and everyone's favourite low-cost airlines formed to take on the government, and Istanbul launches its reign as Europe's largest airport with 3 simultaneous takeoffs. In the military news this week, the wreckage of the F-15 Sea Eagle that crashed off the coast of the UK has been found, and the US Airforce announces its options for private air refuelling companies. And finally this week, something to look forward to, Matt talks to Captain Al about in-flight air systems and our first instalment of our new segment for the show, The Plain Truth, which I'm very much looking forward to. So without further ado, let's whisk you over to our PTUK Master Studios, where Matt is there, hopefully pushing all the right buttons.
Yes, but not necessarily in the right order, I believe is the phrase goes, isn't it? There we go.
So how are things in the world of Matt? I understand you've got a couple of beers to try.
I do, absolutely. I'm reaching the end of my first can, which I've misplaced. So I have to confess, our producer is very nervous because there's usually a reason why I don't drink. So we'll see how this goes. What could possibly go wrong, eh, chaps?
So you've got 19 left to get through.
No, I had one last night, and then this is can number 2 here. So yeah. So we're doing all right. Yeah. I noticed just having a look at the cat. It's not just the heat. I've gone red already. This could be a disaster.
Oh, blimey!
I keep pressing the fade button. Look, that's how badly I'm doing. I'm fading.
Actually, I think there's probably quite a few beers on the list, on that list of treats that are in the kind of 6% realm.
Oh, there? Oh, blimey. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think about that. I assumed they would be weak. Oh, no.
So anyway, we'll let Matt leave Matt to press something.
The 2 I've got are only 4%. Don't panic.
Oh, we're safe. We're safe. So moving on to our next co-host this week, and it's safe to say this guy, this man, this gent is the absolute don of advertising when it comes to beer-based beverages from a large UK airline. So, all the way in his stately mansion over in Buckinghamshire, big hello to Neville Bounds.
Yes, hello. As you can see, I'm on brand this week. And a couple of gold cards have just come through the post today as well, which is very nice of those BA boys, just so you can see what one of those looks like, Pip, if you're watching.
Oh, right.
But,
okay.
Anyway, great to be back. Sorry I wasn't around last week. It was our wedding anniversary, so I thought I would have the night off, if that was okay.
Absolutely.
But I understand the start of the show last week went sensationally well. No problems whatsoever. So that was fantastic.
It always happens when you're not here, Nev. Something always goes wrong when you're not on duty. So now, obviously, wedding anniversary would normally involve meals out and things like that. I mean, it must have been a bit of a strange one, actually, to be honest, given what we're going through at the moment.
Yeah, it was a takeaway from the local Indian, and I have to say the lamb address is normally absolutely spot on. Unfortunately, this week, or last week rather, I'm sure it was a vindaloo. Someone was having a bit of a laugh. And, well, I'm not going to go into any more detail at all, but it was suboptimal, shall we say.
Okay. It wasn't one of those where you had to put a toilet roll in the freezer or anything, was it?
I'm not saying any more about it.
Okay, right. Okay. That's it. I've lowered the tone already. Yeah.
the sales of talcum powder have gone through the roof.
Right, good. Lovely.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that would be a thing, but anyway, yes. Okay.
So for those of you watching, you may notice that we're missing Armando this week. Unfortunately, Armando can't be with us this evening because he is, one of those few who is still very busy flying around the US of A. So, Armando, we do miss you, and hopefully he'll be back next week. But he has sent us some military stories in, so don't despair. But we're going to say a quick hello to everyone who's in the chat room, actually. Everyone who's joined us this evening in the chat room. Loads of people in the chat room tonight. It's good to see everyone there on this Friday evening. It is the 19th of June. My word, guys, we're nearly into July. It's almost summertime. But yeah, big hello to everyone who's joined us in the live YouTube chat room this evening. Great to see you all there. So, Matt, we've got some stuff at the top of the show, haven't we, about a certain meetup that's happening in a virtual sense tomorrow evening.
Indeed, yes, absolutely. If you're listening to the podcast version of the show, unfortunately you've missed it. But we've got a little Saturday night Zoom beer session. Loads of people. I think we've got over 30 people, I think, in there already for this Saturday. So very much looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. 7 p.m. Tomorrow evening, or Saturday evening, I should say. So that's Saturday the 20th of June. If you are watching this on YouTube at the moment, and you haven't sent us an email, do so. podcast@planetalkinguk.com. That's podcast@planetalkinguk.com. And basically say you'd like to join us on the little Zoom meetup that we're having, and we will send you the link. Simple as that, really. But as I say, got nearly 30 people. No, in fact, we have got 30 people who are all going to be joining us, so it's going to be really exciting. Looking forward to that. And thanks to Carlos, I've got plenty of beer to enjoy as well. So who knows? 2 nights in a row.
I look forward to that. But
also, I was going to say, worth mentioning as well, actually, that if you're looking for something to do before we have our little Zoom meetup, we do have very kindly sent to us the guy from the guys that are doing it. He says maybe I shouldn't have been introducing it while I'm trying to find all the links, but
do you make it carry on?
Right. Yeah, you do it. I'll look for the link. Hang on.
Look for the link. So for those of you who cast your minds back to Biggin Hill last year, wasn't it? Biggin Hill last year. You remember Matt interviewed one of the guys from Airability. Now these guys do a kind of a flying thing for the disabled people, which is absolutely fantastic, and it's for the British Disabled Flying Charity. They've got what they're calling the Armchair Airshow, which is going to be tomorrow at 2 p.m. BST, between 2 and 6 p.m. They're going to be bringing a thrill of air shows to your living room around the UK and beyond. Expect free access, exclusive hand-picked footage from air displays, the military and space accompanied by commentary by the pilots, live interviews with some of the world's most iconic aviators, and opportunities to view exclusive, never-seen footage, all from the displays over the course of the last few years. Brought to you by Airability. Matt hopefully will have the link for that, but it's going to be on YouTube.
Yep.
And if you want to go back to when Matt interviewed the guys at Airability last year, if you take yourselves back to episode number 285 of the show, and ish, it's been told, it's in our Biggin Hill compilation of interviews that we done last year. So that'll be. I wonder if we've
wonder if we've got time. See how we get on, perhaps later on in the show, whether we could actually play it out.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
I'm just uploading it at the moment, so perhaps that might be.
Yeah, we'll do that on the fly. So we'll perhaps move on with the show. We could perhaps sort of do it in between military or something, couldn't we?
Yes.
But, we will see. Okay. So those of you who are listening, best place to go to look at the link is escaping me. So it's the Airability website. So it's www.airability.com, aerobility.com, and I'm just trying to get what I'll do is I'll make sure that the links are in the bottom of this when it goes out afterwards. But it's really worth a go. I think what time does it start? Was it about? I think it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I think, wasn't it?
It's 2 p.m. 2 p.m. BST until 6 p.m.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow.
And then you've got an hour to go and grab a drink, and then you can join us for our little meetup. So we have a little bit of a teaser, so you can. Here's a little teaser about what to look forward to.
I miss air shows.
Armchair Airshow, Mike Ling checking in.
Mike Ling, display running on time, you're cleared on slot.
Cleared on slot, copy. Mike Ling.
Armchair Airshow, Historic 1, checking in. Mike Ling and Historic 1, over to our flight display director, Mike Miller-Smith.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves an airshow.
Red Arrow!
going to be so much fun. We have to make sure we're watching that, don't we? That looks great.
That is awesome. That looks awesome. And let's be fair, guys. We need this in this current climate because obviously we're not going to be able to go to any air shows possibly this year. We're still hoping that we'll get to go to the Malta Air Show in September. That still, from what I heard on a interview a few days ago, which Nev put the link to me through on YouTube. That was it one of the Maltese news stations?
Yes, it was. You know how sometimes YouTube tries to do a translation for you?
Oh, my.
It did try to do a translation, and boy, what a haulix it made of it. So the gist that I got from it was that it is still going ahead, and they're very much looking forward to seeing us there. So we'll have to see. But I'm sure there'll be special social distancing measures. But it is at the end of September, so we've got a little while to go yet. So let's see how we do.
Yeah,
indeed.
So without further ado, then. Oh.
I can say no. I've just popped up on the screen that you can see. If you want to jot that down, it's a bit of a tricky one to do so. But the link for, as I say, those listening to the audio version of this and that, the link will be. I believe it's going to be available afterwards as well, isn't it? So if you don't catch it at that time, it will be available to watch afterwards. But there we go. Right, time to move on.
Excellent. So we better do some aviation stuff. So without further ado, we're going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if everyone's ready.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. So, kicking off this week's first news story, and we thought just for a change this week, we'd talk about the 737 MAX because
it's been a while. To be fair, it's been a while.
It's been a while. So this headline and the article has been written with sources from Reuters.com and CNBC.com. So Boeing are likely to undertake key 737 MAX certification flights in June. So Boeing is aiming to conduct a key certification test flight on its grounded 737 MAX jet in late June. Two people briefed on the matter said on Wednesday this week. So the sources also warned the date could slip into July. So it's obviously going to slip, isn't it? So it's fair there. So Boeing did not comment on the certification flight timing, but said late Wednesday on the 10th of June it had won approval from the Federal Aviation Administration for a service bulletin that details the modifications required for 737 MAX wiring. Boeing has already begun modifying aircraft that have not yet been delivered and is coordinating modification efforts with the airlines, the company said. New aircraft being built will include the update, they've also said. And Boeing has said it's shared with airlines draft pilot training materials and related information to help operators facilitate and plan the development of their training programs. Reuters has previously reported the FAA does not plan to clear Boeing for a resumption of the 737 MAX passenger flights until at least August. So elsewhere, actually in the US, the 737 MAX sparked senators to introduce a bill to reform aircraft certification. This is in Seattle, Chicago. US senators introduced legislation on Tuesday that would strengthen FAA oversight of aircraft certification following the fatal crashes of the 737 MAX. The measure seeks to eliminate the ability of aircraft makers like Boeing to unduly influence the certification process and seeks to change how the Federal Aviation Administration approves aircraft. The primary goal of the legislation is to make sure the FAA remains in the driver's seat when it comes to certification, said Cantwell, a politician of Washington State, where Boeing manufactures most of its aircraft. The proposal includes only technical changes from a draft circulated last week that was reported by Reuters. The draft bill, called the Aircraft Safety and Certification Reform Act of 2020, would require a change aimed at preventing unique pressure or instances of perceived coziness or failures to maintain independence between the FAA and Boeing employees conducting certification tasks. The draft legislation would give the agency new authority to hire or remove Boeing employees conducting FAA certification tasks, appoint safety advisors, and grant new whistleblower protections to employees. It would also authorize $150 million over 10 years for new FAA training and to hire specialized personnel. The draft bill also addresses concerns about human factors, saying when certifying a new aircraft type, the FAA must address the cumulative impact that new technologies may have on pilot response, consult outside experts, and also notify other international regulators and encourage them to make evaluations. Now, it's one of these reports that's linked to this as well. This was on the Reuters.com, actually. Says that the pilot behaviour draft bill also addresses concerns about human factors, saying the FAA must review and potentially modify existing assumptions on how pilots identify and respond to cockpit situations. We all know about the runaway trim on the MCAS system. Federal review concluded Boeing underestimated the effect of a malfunction of the new automation software in the aircraft could have on pilots who were dealing with a cacophony of alerts in both 737 MAX crashes. Now, I remember when the report came out on the FAA's website a while back, and they had a detailed list of of what was going on on the flight deck at the time, especially in the Ethiopian crash. And it is safe to say, when reading that, the pilots did have quite a lot going on the flight deck when this was happening. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that we've seen this before, haven't we? That when there's a major emergency going on, there's a lot of noise and then potentially a lot of distraction as well. I know Al's talked about this many times, about the cacophony of stuff that's going on. So all of these things, as tragic as these accidents have been, there are lessons that are being learned from them, thank goodness. And I think it's just as well there are. And one of the things clearly was the relationship between Boeing and FAA, which has been questioned and at least talked about many times previously. So if that has some degree of separation, and it sounds like there's a lot of work being done in that aspect, that's going to be a good thing, I think, definitely.
Are you looking forward to flying on one of these eventually, Nev, at some point?
I am, actually, yes. I mean, I'm not a massive Boeing fan, but I think I ought to take a flight on one at least once it gets going. There's an awful lot just parked up on there, waiting for revisions. And I forget what I was looking at on YouTube the other day. They were saying about how long it's going to take to get all of the software revisions and all of the modifications for all of the aircraft back in the air, even the ones they've made, let alone the ones that were coming off the production line. It's a long time. It's over a year is what they're talking about.
And with all these aircraft parked on one of the pictures on the story, actually, on this Reuters link for the story here, shows, we've seen it before, the 737 MAX is parked on the parking lot at the Boeing field and in Seattle. And I just, for some bizarre reason, before we started the show, I thought I'd count exactly how many parking spaces a Boeing 737 MAX takes up. Anyone care to guess?
30.
You're nearly there, Matt.
Oh,
Nev, any advance on 30?
Oh, well, I said 6.
737 MAX. So we've got the wings, the fuselage, the engines, the tail.
Oh, crikey. 20 then.
I'm just going to quickly look in the chat room just in case anyone's had a guess in the chat room. No.
Yeah, because just
it is
they're about
40.
40, okay.
Oh. There we go.
I suppose but it's one of the things that always reminds me, that always surprises me. Of course, they are always bigger than you imagine them to be. Do you know what I mean? I suppose because, like, when you're looking at it through the windows in the departure lounge or whatever, they don't look that massive until you're actually down on the ground and having a look at it. I didn't hear that. That's probably just as well. Yes. Anyway, we're going to move on to
the next story, Matt. This one we're actually going to EasyJet and Ryanair for this one.
It's all of them, in fact.
With a bit of BA.
A little bit of BA in this one as well. And this is an unusual alliance, shall we say? So unfortunately, it is that that COVID-19 thing is the link behind all this. Everybody take a quick sip. BA, EasyJet, and Ryanair. This is on news.sky.com, and as I say, it's BA, EasyJet, and Ryanair launch legal action over government's quarantine. Possibly this could literally be the only time these airlines ever work together. Anyway, British Airways, EasyJet, and Ryanair have launched legal action against the government's controversial quarantine measures. A statement from BA's parent company IAG said the airlines would be asking for a judicial review to be heard as soon as possible. The companies had said earlier this week they would join together to try to end the 14-day quarantine rule for international arrivals, which they say will deter travel and threaten even more jobs. Describing the rule as flawed, they said it would have a devastating effect on British tourism and the wider economy. The airlines said that they had seen no evidence of when proposed air bridges between the UK and other countries would be implemented. They want the government to instead readopt the policy it introduced on the 10th of March, which saw passengers from countries deemed at high risk of coronavirus infection being ordered to self-isolate on arrival in the UK. A joint statement from the three airlines said this would be the most practical and effective solution and enable civil servants to focus on other more significant issues arising from the pandemic, while bringing the UK in line with much of Europe, which is opening its borders mid-June. It comes after the IAG chief executive Willie Walsh told Sky News the new rules would torpedo the chances of the aviation sector getting back to normal. We think it's irrational. We think it's disproportionate, he said. Michael O'Leary, chief executive of BA's rival Ryanair, has said the quarantine rules were nonsense and would be useless. The Irish airline had previously said in a statement Ryanair will support any legal action launched by IAG against this ineffective quarantine. I mean, the story goes on. Obviously, we got the gist of that. In fact, I think we covered that last week, didn't we? Or a few weeks ago, where we were talking about that. It would be... I don't know. What do we think about this, guys? Because, I mean, on the one hand, I can see some logic behind it, because obviously you want to protect those who are here in the UK already. On the other hand, I mean, I don't really understand. I think we were talking last week, weren't we? Whether some airlines and some countries and things had adopted the ability to. They were basically testing you at the airport, so you only had to be. In fact, I think some tests were coming back within sort of like half an hour. You were getting a result as whether you had it or not. I mean, is it purely a financial decision that they aren't looking into that? Because I mean, the article I was reading, they were making the passengers pay for it, but then me personally, I would happily pay 50, 60 euros or whatever it is if it meant I didn't have to have 2 weeks off work.
Yes, very true. I think things may have moved on a bit as well, because there was this announcement today by the government that the threat level, or whatever it's called, has been moved down to 3, and that's going to be some more lifting of restrictions. So this is my own personal opinion. I don't know whether it is going to happen or not. I would say by the end of this month, the end of June, so that's just sort of 7 or 8 or 9 days away, it would not surprise me if we see those restrictions, that 14-day quarantine period, lifted completely.
I just think they have to do it. It's not gonna work. And there's so many people, including us and yourselves and people who, after all this time, really probably have the ability the funds and the time of holiday accrued to take a holiday. But if you want to take a week's holiday somewhere, with this in place, then you've got to book 3 weeks off work.
Yeah, I think there's some update as well. Matt from the A320 podcast, hi Matt, says in the chat room, government are apparently announcing air corridors and air bridges from the 29th of June, and that most restrictions are expected to be reduced or removed, and that would not surprise me because of what's happened today. So, but let's see what happens. I hope it does, because they can't have this situation where you just can't you can't go anywhere after you've come back from somewhere.
No,
indeed. This is the thing, isn't it? And of course, it will literally have exactly what people fear, isn't it? You know, I mean, I can't afford to take 2 weeks. You're essentially, if you had, say, like a 3-week, say you had a 1 week holiday, and then you had to be in quarantine for 2 weeks. So that would be your 3 weeks worth of annual entitlement just for 1 week away. Now, I suppose many would argue that if you're going on holiday or whatever, that's the risk that you take. But there must be a better way of doing this, as you say, with the air bridges and all that kind of thing. That's one solution. But again, I suppose that does limit choice. It means you can't go to perhaps your favourite destination because it doesn't have an agreement with the UK. Also, potentially, could push the prices up of going to those locations because everybody's going to want to go there.
Yeah. So we best move on to the next story, because the next story is rather disturbing. And Nev,
if you thought this last story was bad, wait till you hear this one. This is on CNN Travel, the headline.
Do you know what? I can't wait for the chat room response to this. Here we go.
Airline ban alcohol on planes in response to COVID-19.
I'm sorry, you broke up there, Nev. Say that again.
I'll say it again, just in case you didn't hear it. Airlines ban alcohol on planes in response to COVID-19. The story continues. Alcohol sales may have boomed during lockdown, but our return to air travel will be an altogether more sobering experience. Airlines, including EasyJet and KLM in Europe, Delta Airlines and American Airlines in the US, and Asia's Virgin Australia, are suspending all or part of their alcoholic drink service in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It's part of a widespread revision of the industry's food and drink service to minimise interaction between crew and passengers and to ensure a safer journey for all. With face masks already mandatory on pretty much all flights around the world, a new legislation introduced in January 2020 to curb antisocial behaviour on flights, it's another in a line of barriers, literal and legal, to getting high in the sky. Ha ha ha. Many airlines are limiting drink options to water only, as face masks must be kept on other than when passengers are eating and drinking. It's a way of ensuring passengers are lingering over their refreshments for no longer than necessary. Well, in Europe, British low-cost airline EasyJet resumed domestic routes across the UK and France on June the 15th, alongside a handful of international routes. Now, whilst customers can bring food and non-alcoholic drinks on board at the beginning only refreshments on offer will be water, which has to be requested from the crew. Food service will resume gradually in the coming months. The crew will manage the use of toilet facilities. So it's for the best that passengers aren't knocking back the Guinnesses and G&Ts. Virgin Atlantic will be issuing passengers with health packs, complete with face masks, surface wipes and hand gel. It too is temporarily removing alcohol on board. KLM, the flag carrier of the Netherlands, has suspended sales of hot and alcoholic drinks, but you can still ask crew for more water and soft drinks. That's in addition to the pre-packed refreshments that will be waiting for you on your seat when you board. Hot meals will only be served on flights that are longer than 9 hours. British Airways is suspending its alcohol service in short-haul economy only, where customers will instead be offered complimentary refreshments along with a bottle of water. Special meals, including children's meals, are temporarily unavailable. Ryanair has also resumed a limited flight schedule. It's changed its service so that all food is pre-packaged and must be ordered before flying. Alcohol isn't off the menu, though. It's chosen to axe its hot drink service instead throughout July. Now, in the US, Delta Airlines isn't serving alcohol on domestic flights or within the Americas, but beer, wine and spirits can be found on all other international flights. Over on American Airlines. The airline is limiting food and drink service in the main cabin according to flight length and destination. Access to alcohol, however, is the preserve of long-haul international flights and the folks in first class. Hong Kong's flag carrier Cathay Pacific will still have drinks available throughout the flight, but the pre-meal bar and pre-poured drinks are temporarily suspended. Virgin Australia is serving all guests complimentary water and a snack, but additional food and drinks aren't currently available for on-board purchase. So if you're traveling this summer, pack plenty of water and healthy snacks, keep your face mask on when not eating or drinking, and be glad that you'll be spared alcohol-related dehydration, a major contribution to jet lag. My goodness, there's some talking points there, aren't there?
I'm going to add to a few as well, if I may, Nev. I'm going to quickly whiz through some of the great comments we've had in the chat room. Perhaps we can comment them as we go. First one, actually, from Micah was, actually, this is going to affect the bottom line of many low-cost airlines to make more money from the ancillary fees that they do so, on top of the fares. Again, I think we're thinking Jet 2 with this one. The lovely Masha is saying, hard to social distance in the middle of a punch-up. I think that's a very good point. I think it's this is Tony S saying, I think it's sensible to reduce the onboard service as much as possible. And I suppose actually that is a good point, isn't it? Because a lot of the social distancing restrictions and things are to do with not, lowering social contact and things like that. I suppose if cabin crew are serving drinks all the time, that's going to be difficult for them to do that. And completely apropos of nothing, Pip says that he had a nice cup of tea on Swiss today. So there we are.
Do you not think, Matt, that this is going to lead to people taking their own booze on air?
Well, I mean, they're doing it already, aren't they? But of course, the reality is that they're going to try and be a little bit less.
On July the 2nd, I'm doing a Nev's passenger experience trip on BA hotels from London Heathrow to Edinburgh. So I'm doing there and back in a day, and I'm hopefully going to interview somebody from Edinburgh Airport when I get there as well. But the reason for doing it is so that you can see what the new experience is. So I'll be in seat 1A, obviously.
Of course, there are rules, yeah.
To report back on what's going on. So that should be quite interesting. So I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing how it all works in the current climate. But of course, this will be a couple of weeks on, so maybe things will have calmed down a bit. But yeah, we shall see. So
have you got to quarantine going to Scotland?
No. At the moment, it's still considered part of the United Kingdom.
Is it?
Although some people may not.
May disagree. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Mike is actually saying that you really can't pack your own water or food as you can't bring it through the security check. That's a good point. That is a good point. Yeah. And Jan Hubner is saying that good point. And shops and past security are usually closed at the moment, which is another good point, isn't it?
Yeah, you see, I think by the time I go, so that'll be, so that's the 2nd of July, so that's Thursday in a couple of weeks' time, isn't it? So I think things may have changed a little bit since then, but certainly today, that's what the current situation is, as it was read out in the article. So, yeah.
So the idea is people go to eBay, get one of those caps with the 2 beer cans each side with the pipes, fill them up before you go.
Of course, that's it.
Brilliant.
Yes. Okay.
Come on, Matt. You had one of those.
Yes. Come on, move on.
So next one is on the bbc.co.uk website. Great video to go with this as well. So the headline, you may have seen this week, planes wedged together after collision at Aberdeen Airport. So an investigation has been launched after a collision between 2 planes on the tarmac at Aberdeen International Airport. The nose of one of the aircraft ended up wedged under the engine of the other on Tuesday evening, lifting it off the ground. No passengers were on board the Loganair jet, which was struck by the former Flybe plane, and the Air Accident Investigation Branch, the AAIB, has been informed. No one was injured in the incident, and Loganair said in a statement that a Loganair Embraer 145 regional jet parked with no passengers or crew members on board, was hit by a former Flybe Bombardier Q400 aircraft, which we understand was being prepped for departure after being stored at Aberdeen Airport. The nose of the Q400 impacted the rear starboard side of the Embraer, becoming lodged underneath and lifting the right main gear off the ground. Jeez. The most important thing is that no one was injured, they said, in the incident, with the crew working on the ex-Flybe aircraft being safe and well away. Yes, I know, because one of them jumped out of the way. Aberdeen International Airport confirmed the incident that happened at around 6 p.m. on Tuesday. The airport said in the statement the Air Accident Investigation Branch is carrying out a full investigation. And also following the incident at Aberdeen, the AAOB is making initial inquiries, and at this stage, there is no further comment. Absolutely love that video. It's quite a clear video, actually, for a change, for one of these sort of CCTV cameras. But safe to say, don't you agree, guys? It's lifted that Embraer quite well off the ground.
Well, it had a bit of a speed up, to be fair. I mean, it was really moving by the time it sort of came into contact. I mean,
might have had a bit of a tailwind perhaps going on as well, but yeah, it certainly did get a decent turn of speed up, didn't it? That's for sure.
I mean, if they wanted to change the wheels on that Embraer, it's a good chance to get those done now.
I mean, okay. I mean, forgive my. I'm ignoring that. The naivety on my part here, and this is, I'm playing devil's advocate here, perhaps. I mean, do you think it was just like wind, or was it because like there was, I mean, you assume that it'd be very flat, obviously, at an airport, where you've got taxiways and runways and all that kind of thing. I mean, part of me's thinking, well, why on earth was this at any point not being done without some kind of tug?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the problem is, I mean, you're right. I mean, but having said that, some aprons aren't completely flat, and if you're perhaps positioned with the wind behind you, and the aircraft's not chocked or it's got some sort of parking brake failure, then of course it's a big mass, really. Even a turboprop like a Dash 8, you get a decent gust of wind behind that, and it just keeps going, and even with a slight downhill gradient. And there was no stopping that one, was for sure.
No, it definitely had a move on.
Yeah. Imagine filling out insurance claims forms for that. Who was in the flight deck at the time? No one. Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, and the aircraft itself, the Embraer 145, it's nice. It's interesting to know, actually, that 145 was 19 and a half years old. So, depending on how bad the damage is, they may well scrap that. But
well, I don't know. 19 is not old, is it?
Yeah, it'll buff out. Yeah, it's one of those ones that'll buff out.
Is it? Right. Okay. I mean, Nick says it's a great video. I think he's right there. Alan was saying it's a great video. He'd not seen it till now. I must admit, I've been looking at the pictures. I hadn't seen the video until we did that. Tony, I think, is on the Nile here. Chocks away.
Literally.
Owen's literally wetting himself. Look, there we go. Literally. Oh, sorry. They don't. I forget I don't know why the emoticons don't come out on this system. I'll have to look into that. But anyway, there you go.
So, Matt, the next story is all about that purple airline.
Right, yes, I've heard of them. Yes, absolutely. It's, well, they've been doing some fun things in lockdown with silly videos in airports, haven't they? But, yeah, this is on the Aerotime Hub. Aerotime.aero is the website, and the headline is Wizz Air continues aggressive expansion with 3 new bases. So, despite the current market conditions, and a clear slump in travel, Wizz Air has continued to aggressively expand throughout Europe. On the 18th of June, the low-cost carrier announced that 3 new bases in the continent, including an increase in capacity at Belgrade, Serbia. So the airline will establish 3 new bases in Georgia. Is it Entsiu? Oh dear, International Airport. Baku, Romania, Dortmund Airport in Germany, and Pulkovo Airport in St. Petersburg, Russia. Wizz Air will base 2, 3, and 1 Airbus A320 family aircraft at the various respective airports. Furthermore, the airline plans to operate 12 new routes from BCM. Which one's BCM? Is that the Baku? Is that that's the George S. New International Airport. 18 new routes from DTM and 5 new routes from LED. In addition to the new bases, the company announced that it will base an additional aircraft at Belgrade, Nikola Tesla Airport in Belgrade, Serbia. The airline will add 9 new routes to the airport, which serve the Serbian capital. In total, 3 aircraft will now be based at Belgrade. Chief Executive Officer of Wizz Air, Joseph Verardi, noted being delighted about the airline's new expansion plans as the low-cost carrier continues to take advantage of market opportunities and re-stimulate demand for low-cost travel. This expansion further contributes to the vital recovery of the economy in our markets, and we remain focused on best servicing them while protecting the health of our customers and employees. Wizz Air's newest announcement is the second round of new bases that were announced by the company on May 29th. The Hungary-based company revealed that 4 new bases will be launched from the 1st of July 2020. These bases are located in Milan, Italy, Larnaca, Cyprus, Lviv, Ukraine, Tirana, Albania, and in total they will host 11 aircraft with over 50 new routes to and from the aforementioned destinations. So busy times really, isn't it? I'm partly surprised, obviously given what's going on, but then I suppose we touched on this before, didn't we? Because a lot of these plans were all very much in the pipework long before this thing hit us all, and I suppose once the wheels are in motion, it's difficult to sort of stop the flow really, and sort of if you're going to end up paying for these slots and things that you paid for at the airports, you might as well get things in place for when it all stops being silly.
I think Wizz have done a fantastic job, actually, don't you?
Yeah, agreed.
Opening up the routes and all the rest of it, and with not much action at Gatwick at the moment in terms of British Airways or Virgin, there's obviously some capacity down there for them as well. So I think this is going to be a big year for Wizz, actually.
There you go. So this is a little bit of a John, our producer, found this graphic earlier. It just gives you an idea of sort of the sort of area they're going to. They've pretty much got Europe sewn up, haven't they? I mean, that's if I were, do you know what? If I were Mr. O'Leary, I might be a bit nervous about how quickly Wizz are expanding.
Yes, I think I would be. And if you look at the last sort of couple of years of Wizz's operation, they have just, nailed it. And they've got some very good load factors, I think, on their aircraft as well. That's the other thing.
Well, and the thing for me as well, it's a bit like Jet2, isn't it? Their customer service is like through the roof, isn't it? I mean, I think I've ironically only recently have I heard one complaint about the way that somebody was treated on Wizz Air, and it was one of those where I was a bit like, I can't talk about it because it was actually something I need their permission to sort of tell the story, but it was in the main it's their feedback is very positive.
Actually, considering how things are in the climate at the moment with the aviation industry, it's something to note that the not a stocks and shares person, but Wizz is one of the few airlines whose share price has actually gone up today.
Yeah, well, I think that, a lot of that will be to do with the fact that there's been lots of announcements and stuff made. You probably find again in a few days or a few weeks that it might settle down a bit, but there will certainly be excitement given the fact that even in these strange times, they're clearly expanding.
Wouldn't it have been a delicious irony if that Dash 8, I know they don't operate the Dash 8, so it wouldn't have happened. Wouldn't it have been a great irony if that Dash 8 that crashed into the Logan Air 145 was called Wizz, with the way it was going?
And on that bombshell, I think it's
excellent.
Shall we move on to the next story? Nev, I think the next one is with you, my friend.
It is, and it's on one of my favourite websites, actually, Turning Left for Less. Now, you might remember, it's a couple of years ago now, I interviewed Michelle when she first started this website. And I have to say, the website and the social media she does has gone from good to fantastic. She's done a great job on this stuff. This is all about British Airways. And, of course, the airline's not been getting great PR at the moment, but from the way they're proposing to just change staff contracts and the current onboard meagre offerings, it's not gone down very well with the customers. However, she's pleased to say that we seem to be turning a corner. And she thinks they've actually gone beyond what many airlines are offering. And putting aside everything else, as a customer with a status, she's extremely happy with this. It means that she can put aside any worries about making up status for a while, and she doesn't feel she needs to travel for the sake of it. It also means she can use up some Avios points if BA don't offer her some decent prices to Europe. They are currently very high for September to most places, in fact. So what the BA have done, in fact, most people that will have already received an email, but they're extending the tier status of the Executive Club membership by a full year. A member status will be renewed for 12 months beyond its current end date. All members will benefit, starting with the tier point collection year month of July 2020 through to June 2021. BA is also reducing the number of tier points needed to reach each tier. So that's bronze, silver, gold guest list and Concorde room card by 25% for the year after a 12-month extension, making it easier for members to renew or upgrade a tier. They'll also be applying a 6-month extension to all newly issued companion vouchers earned in July, August and September. This is an addition to those that have already received an extra 6 months up to now. There's no change to the validity of Jokers, which is the gold redemption vouchers. Gold upgrade vouchers have already been extended by 6 months. Understandably, people have got a lot of questions, so she's working through them and adding to a frequently asked questions article that she's putting out on her website later on and in social media. So that's it's good news to see that BA are taking this, taking the bull by the horns actually, and making sure that people can retain their status, because obviously there's just been no flying at all.
Well, it's not the fault of the customers, is it? That's the thing.
Yeah. So that's a good news story.
Agreed. You still there now, Carlos?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
yeah. I'm just listening.
It's just usually when it goes quiet, it's that's usually the sign for the next
jumping
story.
In. The next story. This one is on the pointsguy.com, and for the lovers of the Queen of the Skies, it's more sad news, unfortunately, because Qantas are to retire their final two Boeing 747s this month. So Qantas are planning to retire their two 747s, as I said, this month. The carrier only has two 747s still in service, both of which were in storage at Sydney Airport since late in March. Qantas first announced their retirements in March, but kept the final two planes stored in Sydney before officially retiring them this month. Victor Hotel Oscar Echo Echo is a nearly 18-year-old aircraft, according to Plane Spotters, while Victor Hotel Oscar Echo Juliet is nearly 17 years old. On June the 16th, Oscar Echo Echo operated its first flight since late March between Sydney and Los Angeles as flight QF6001. Once it arrived in LAX, it will operate one last flight to Victorville, where it will join the already retired 747s, and Oscar Echo Juliet is set to make its final flight towards retirement this month. Executive Travel reports that Qantas started the year with 6 747s in their fleet. Now, once Victor Hotel, Oscar Echo Echo and Oscar Echo Juliet reach their final resting place in the desert, the airline's fleet will be forever changed. The airline had long planned to retire the Queen of the Skies from its fleet. However, the coronavirus accelerated the plans. The much-loved 747, like its fellow Super Jumbo, the Airbus A380, have been deemed too big for a number of airlines given the reduced demand for travel. The 747 has been replaced by more fuel-efficient twin-engine aircraft, such as the 787 Dreamliner, which also features a more modern business-class product. Unfortunately for these final two 747s, there is no celebratory final flights or fanfare. They'll quietly fly to the desert for their final resting place, which I think, guys, is really from Qantas, if I'm being totally honest.
Yes, I think they could have, considering the amount of service the 744s have done with Qantas, with their familiar long reach logo on the outside as well. I think they could have done that. I think they could have done a slightly better job of that rather than just doing a slow fade out, don't you?
I'm sure I read somewhere as well that these also weren't that long ago refurbished. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's ironic. Actually, worth mentioning as well, I hope you don't mind, Carlos, but Qantas have also announced that they're cancelling all international flights until October. The move comes obviously as many airlines prepare to return to the skies, but in a clear indication that long-distance air travel will not be returning to any time soon. The Australian government has already said that the tourist-related travel to Australia is some way off, and it may be 2021, which I think Grant has said to us a few times, hasn't he, before the country starts welcoming back foreign visitors, with the exception of a handful of countries. So I suppose I don't know. I guess they've got a lot on their plate, haven't they? If that's the case, and there won't be any passengers to put on it. I think that's more. I think perhaps they quite like a fanfare as well. But given how things are, and you'd normally use the 747 on long haul routes, wouldn't you? I guess.
I'm just surprised that they didn't do something. Like when Delta obviously retired the Mad Dogs, I think they had some kind of a big day, and they made a big thing about it, and a lot of the airlines do make a big thing of when they retire certain aircraft. But it's just Qantas, I suppose. I'm sure Grant McCarran would say something about why Qantas aren't doing anything at all to celebrate it. But
apparently in the chat room, I think Tony S is saying that apparently he thinks they sent one to a museum recently.
Well, they could donate one to us if they like.
Right, yes. Okay, there is that.
That's got a big back garden.
Not big enough for one of those, mate. Definitely not.
We're going to move on to the next story, I suppose. Matt, this next story could be a costly move for Airbus.
Well, I guess they don't need them, though, at the moment anyway, but all become clear in a moment. And I know, I seem to recall, actually, we've sort of covered, in episode 312, we covered, this sort of in detail as well, where they were first starting to look at, this. But the story that I'm referring to from Flight Global says that EasyJet agrees a 5-year deal deferral on 24 Airbus aircraft. So EasyJet has reached an agreement with Airbus. That's it. I'm never drinking again. EasyJet has reached an agreement with Airbus to push back by 5 years the delivery of 24 aircraft that were originally destined to join its fleet between 2020 and 2022. The aircraft will now be delivered between 2025 and 2027, potentially resulting in EasyJet having to pay up an additional £95 million. That's $120 million due to inflation. Wow. Any increase would be materially offset by the reduced cost of borrowing associated with the significant cash flow benefits in the next 16 months arising from these deferrals, said the airline. The agreement gives EasyJet the flexibility until December 2020 to defer 2 further aircraft deliveries and opt against taking up to 7 more jets that were scheduled for delivery between 2022 and 2026. EasyJet's agreement with Airbus also includes deadline extensions for exercising existing options on 13 additional aircraft. The deadline on 7 of these options has been extended by 1 year to November 2021, with the remaining 6 options to be exercised by 2022 in November. The changes agreed defer capacity in the medium term while continuing our long-term strategy of replacing our older fleet with the advanced and lower fuel burning A320neo family, states EasyJet's chief executive Johan Lundgren. EasyJet had announced in April that it planned to defer its order for 24 aircraft. The move followed pressure from the airline's founder and major shareholder Stelios to cancel or renegotiate an order for 107 aircraft. They had sought to remove the airline's chairman chief executive, chief financial officer, and an independent non-executive director from the board over the dispute. But this attempt failed when shareholders voted to back the management. Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, I was sorry to interrupt you there, Matt. I was just going to say that pressure from Stelios, in inverted commas, would be an understatement of the century.
Yes, quite.
The letter that he wrote, which is in the public domain, to the rest of the management team. My goodness me, he did not pull his punches.
No.
But clearly, it's been, I won't say it's been resolved, but there's been an alternative solution found, shall we say?
I mean, you can't blame them in lots of ways, really, can you, for doing this? Because it's very weird times at the moment, isn't it? And now is not the time when you're basically sort of having to decide what you're going to do with your staff, depending on how long this goes on for. Really, now is not the time to be investing that kind of money, is it?
Well, yes and no, I suppose, because but I'm no expert in the world of commerce and when it comes to aviation. But all this traffic is going to come back. We all want to fly. People want to fly. Business people want to fly. Leisure people want to fly. So you have to be ready for when that moment happens. Now, that requires investment, of course. But, of course, also, I fully concede that the costs that have been incurred over the last 3 months with aircraft storage, crew on furlough, all sorts of things are absolutely horrific. So, yeah, that's a big dent in the wallet, of course it is.
Yeah. There's, I mean, you think the impact of 9/11 and that, I mean, people keep making comparisons, don't they? But in reality, there is no comparison, is there?
No, I think with 9/11, as tragic as it was, as we keep saying, there was an end to it in the sense that with the cockpit doors fully improved and lots of other security measures in place, it was deemed, a lot safer to fly. But of course, in these circumstances, we don't know really what all the safety implications are yet. We will one day, but not at the moment. But in the meantime, the economy somehow has to keep going, doesn't it? And aviation, commercial aviation, is a very large part of it.
Indeed.
So moving on to the next story then, Nev, and I do intend at some point to get to this airport to see what it's like.
Yes, it is spectacular, isn't it? We've been talking about it a lot on the show for a long time now, actually. This is on the Forbes website, Forbes.com. It says 3 aircraft took off simultaneously at Istanbul Airport on Sunday, inaugurating a 3rd independent runway. Ordinarily, that is enough of an accomplishment, but the expanded capacity also means Istanbul is now Europe's largest airport. Would you believe that? I thought it would be probably Frankfurt or Schiphol in Amsterdam. But Turkish President Erdogan was at the airport for the inauguration and gave ceremonial permission for the 3 Turkish Airlines flights to depart. And I think Matt's going to bring up a video of that, hopefully. A 787 took off on runway 1836, was an A3 runway. Which runway did Erdogan use? None. He arrived by helicopter. Erdogan below had an aerial tour of the new runway and additional infrastructure. The aircraft flew under flight numbers significant to Turkish history. 1453 for when the Ottomans captured Constantinople, 1923 marking the declaration of the Turkish Republic, and 2023 representing Erdogan's future Vision 2023 plan. The additional runway boosts capacity at the new Istanbul airport to over 120 takeoffs and landings per hour, higher than the maximum 120 at Paris Charles de Gaulle, Amsterdam Schiphol, which is at 112, or Frankfurt's 106, according to Eurocontrol. Heathrow is smaller with a maximum of 88 movements an hour, but high slot utilization and deployment of larger aircraft sees Heathrow handle more passengers. Turkish Aviation's upwards march mirrors the larger Turkish economy, whilst Western Europe sees incremental airport capacity gains. The new Istanbul airport opened in 2018 with full-scale operations last year, has annual capacity of of 90 million passengers. With a total of 6 runways and a second terminal, capacity in 2028 will grow to 200 million, which will make Istanbul the largest airport in the world. The president noted that the rapid change from 2002, when all of Turkey had only 34 million passengers. Last year, it had 209 million passengers. Runways are multi-year construction projects, and work was almost finished on this new runway when COVID-19 broke out and then dampened prospects for travel in the coming years. Istanbul logically proceeded with the almost complete runway, as other airports are doing, with infrastructure nearly finished. Some airports are postponing new construction due to COVID-19, whilst other airports are continuing or even accelerating development works. The new runway is Istanbul's 5th, but the existing 4 comprises 2 sets of dual runways. Amsterdam Schiphol also has 5 runways for commercial flights, the highest in Europe, but has less capacity than Istanbul due to slot controls. The new additional runway gives Istanbul 3 independent runways that can be used simultaneously. Accompanying the new runway is the airport's second control tower and new taxiways, which will help reduce the long taxi times that have frustrated passengers. You want to try Schiphol Airport in that case. The first flights to depart simultaneously on 3 runways appear to be ceremonial, although they flew under commercial flight numbers used for trips to Basel, Karasaki and Naples. Tracking from Flight Radar 24 shows the flights returning to Istanbul Airport about 20 minutes after takeoff. So that is a huge piece of construction, and the fact that they've got 3 independent runways is remarkable, isn't it?
And they are really well situated. If you look on like a whole overplan of Europe, the map on Google Maps, the airport is really well situated in Europe, because it's a great stepping stone to go from, say, the UK over to Dubai and Oman and places in the Middle East.
Yeah,
a lot of airlines I know do that. You can obviously fly direct with certain airlines, but a lot of airlines I know do fly to Istanbul and then make the hop from Istanbul with a 737-800 to Dubai. Yeah.
So, no, they've done a great job there. But like you, I'd love to go there one day. I've never been to Turkey at all, actually. So I'd love the opportunity to check out the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
an airshow visit.
Part of me's surprised by their claim that they are the biggest airport in Europe now. I mean, as you say, I mean, like Nev said, I would have still had Schiphol down with its 5 runways, to be honest.
You should check out this satellite view, Matt. It's pretty impressive. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
that's the whole point of using this, isn't it? It's simultaneous operations. That's the difference. So, good on them. Great stuff.
So, moving on to the next story. Story number 10, this is. And for those of you who know that I do love a bit of a flight sim, a bit of a play on the old flight sim. I have been utilising my sim here at home quite a bit over the lockdown period. But some good news for those of you who love the Airbus or the A320s, because this one is on the PCgamer.com website. And if you love your Airbus, Thrustmaster, who are manufacturers of some very high-end flight sim bits and pieces, Thrustmaster are releasing a A320 inspired throttle and stick setup. So if you're a Microsoft Flight Sim fan or an X-Plane 11 fan, and it means you care about detail, don't worry, Thrustmaster is on your side. Not content with creating the ultimate in combat hot-ass flight sticks, the replica A10 Warthog, which is really good actually, in the F-16 and F-18 controls. It's also moving into civil aviation side of aviation with the Airbus partnership. So they've actually joined forces with Airbus to design this. So you can buy yourself a side stick, a throttle quadrant based on the A320. So this time around, it's less of a replica and more inspired by the A320 design, which means you don't get the original base, which honestly looks like it was ripped out of an 80s manual transmission 4, but you do get a whole lot more control for your money. So where the actual flight stick in an A320 just offers you little axis control, the new Thrustmaster civil aviation stick adds a pair of triggers well, you've got to have triggers on a control stick, to be fair, and a hack switch as well, and an extra top button. And you also get a mini throttle on the base for extra control too. And an additional 12 buttons as well arrayed around the Airbus control base, which you can set up to obviously control other various things on the aircraft. And you can also, you've also got the throttle dock as well, which is also in the guise of an A320 style too. There's also going to be add-on units to add on to this, which replicate brakes, flap controls of the A320, which they haven't yet set a date for release on those yet. But to give you a rough idea on the control systems and stuff, the side stick controller is going to cost you around about $64.99 in UK pounds, and around about $69.99 or €69.99. The throttle quadrant for the Airbus, which is being released in September this year, is going to cost you around about £90 or $100. And then the add-ons, which should be confirmed later this year, which are going to have an Officer Pack Airbus edition, which are going to be hopefully released around about September, and they're going to cost you around about £149 or around about $160. So, Matt, you ran a little video there, I think, while I was reading that with the pictures and stuff of that. I have to say, just as well, Captain Al actually sent this over to me this week, and he was quite impressed by this. So I think there might be a few Airbus fans out there who currently use X-Plane 11 or Microsoft Flight Sim who may well choose to spend some money and have these at home. What do you think, Nev?
Oh, it looks fantastic, doesn't it? So the only thing is, how are you? I mean, you've bought enough off of Amazon and other suppliers, haven't you, over the last few months? How are you going to get this one past Gemma? That's what I'd like to know.
He's not. That's the long and the short of it. Also, forgive my naivety. Is this not all a bit too late now? Everybody's having to go back to work.
I don't know. I think the amount of detail and design they've put into these, obviously with their links with Airbus, they've done a really good job. And I think there will be a hardcore group of Airbus enthusiasts who do enjoy flight simming, who will be buying these, a lot of these. So yeah, one of those being Captain Al.
Yeah,
actually, and it wouldn't surprise me if a certain Captain Nick might actually dabble in this as well.
Jan Hubner said in the chat room, "Oh, I need this for the forthcoming Microsoft Flight Sim," which I popped up while the video was playing. Yeah, it's I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know. But somebody needs to explain to me the attraction of sitting there and pretending to fly. Like
I think if you've had a go on one that's good,
right?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult to put it down, I have to say. And you just want to improve your skills and get better and better at it. So yeah, and of course the thing that's been missing previously has been sort of realistic, stick and rudder controls, flight controls. But this, along with its throttle quadrant and the side stick controller, is the business. I wonder if Matt from the A320 podcast will have one in his man cave down at the bottom of his garden that I visited.
I think Matt was in the chat room actually, so it'd be interesting to see whether he'll be smashing the credit card to get these.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
So,
of course, anyway, they've nailed the visuals as well, haven't they? Now that's the thing. It's very realistic now, I suppose.
I think the whole thing as well, Matt, as you know, because you've seen it on the videos that I've sent you, the realism behind it now, because they track real world weather data, real world traffic patterns. It's as good as you can get, to be fair, without being a fully qualified commercial airline pilot.
Yeah, I'm just going to lower the tone, if I may. The main man, Micah, says that the Thrustmaster isn't that something that Ron
Moving on to the next story, and
okay,
Matt, you better put your mask on for this next one.
Oh, really? Oh, dear.
Before we move on, as Captain Al, I must say I would feel sorry for the receptionist at that company when he or she answers the phone, wouldn't you? Good afternoon, Thrustmaster. Can I help you? Or something like that.
Quite.
Oh dear. Anyway, Matt, moving on to the next story. Put your mask on, please.
Right, absolutely. Or not, in this case. So this is malaysia.news.yahoo.com. Good luck typing that in. And it's Garuda Indonesia says flight attendants will forgo masks so passengers can see if they are smiling or frowning. In Garuda Indonesia, they say that their flight attendants will stop wearing face masks after they received numerous complaints from unhappy passengers. The airline's chief executive officer said, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that, so sorry about that, said that people took issue with the fact that they could not see the flight attendants' expressions while they were being served. Many of Garuda's adult passengers have been complaining about our stewardesses wearing masks. Because of the mask, the passengers cannot tell if they are smiling or frowning, and this was said apparently during a webinar hosted by by one of the universities out there a while back. So Ifran added that the flight attendants would gradually switch to wearing face shields instead, and interactions with passengers will be minimised to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. He said that getting on a flight should be pleasurable experiences and did not want to make passengers feel like they were in an intensive care unit. We do not want passengers to board the flight feeling unhappy or stressed out or thinking, oh, is this an ICU when they get on. Everyone wearing personal protective equipment is everyone wearing protective equipment. I'm terribly sorry, my computer has just crashed, so I'm unable to keep reading that story.
Just some initial thoughts there. I could tell that it would not be an ICU because it's got engines, wings, and probably 8 wheels.
Absolutely. I really don't agree with this story. I have to be honest with you. I think it's very selfish, actually, on the part of the passengers to be frowning and unhappy about the fact that they can't see the air stewardesses' faces. I think that's one of the most ridiculous statements I've ever heard.
Yes, they've not thought that through, have they?
No, absolutely. And anyway, because, it's more, my thinking is I want them to wear the mask because I want them to be protected. Never mind Mr. Joe Schmo Public who are flying around. I want them to be able to go home safely to their families. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, even myself, I have purchased my my disposable protective masks for when I travel with the BA boys in a couple of weeks' time. So this will be the first time I've ever worn one in 58 and a half years, basically. So, that's going to be interesting. So, but even I will wear one because they won't let me fly otherwise.
Well, no. And again, part of me is thinking, well, if they're going to do that, why is it going to be okay, essentially, for the passengers to have to wear masks and the cabin crew not?
Yes. Good point. Very good point. Yeah.
At least they won't be able to see Nev's smiling.
They won't be able to.
Mind you, I tell you, when it arrived, because I didn't actually see that side of it when I took it out of the packet. I only saw that side of it when I took it out of the packet, and I thought it's one of those sort of tenor pants things.
Right. Okay.
Oh,
unexpected.
How do you get out there?
Yes.
I just thought you got some anti-back wipes. To be fair.
Yes, it does look. Yes, unexpected item in the bagging area.
In the world of face masks, I'm a complete amateur, so I don't know what on earth I'm looking at or talking about.
Micah points out a very, very good fact in the chat room, actually, that the mask protects others, not the wearer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's my point. As I see, I would rather. I suppose, yeah. But as I say, my major concern is I want the cabin crew to be able to go home safely because they've got to work in these conditions and it can't be nice for any of them. What's going on. I mean, if you're having to fly, you're having to do it at the moment for a very good reason, probably. Just everybody wear masks and then minimise the risk. This is the thing. Also, so Liz Burr in the chat room said, "I'd rather not see stewards' faces than see a doctor's face." It's exactly the same, isn't it? Because you can see if the doctor is happy about the news he's about to give you or not.
So we're going to move on to the last story in the commercial news segment this week. And Nev's been really looking forward to this story. And you know, on the show, we love to talk food.
Yes, but proper food, not what this is. Anyway, it's on the executivetraveller.com.
Say it like you mean it, Nev, won't you? I mean,
yeah, I'm not enthusiastic, but let's see how we get on. Bear with me. It says British Airways moves to in-flight meal boxes. And it says, join us for the unboxing of British Airways' latest boxed meals. So they're going to launch a new in-flight meal service this week with pre-packed boxes replacing the minimalist coronavirus-era bag of a wrapped sandwich, a snack, and a bottle of water. Created by BA's catering firm Doe & Co. for every cabin from first and business class through to economy, these single-serve boxes minimise interaction with the crew and are expected to be part of BA's in-flight experience for at least the next few months. So here's a sneak preview. Let's have a look at this. This is the first. So the first one is BA's first class box will contain a salad, bread, appetizer, hot dish, which only will be served in first class, and a trio of desserts. I mean, it looks very colourful. I think we could say that. On long-range daytime flights, there'll also be a rather scrumptious-looking afternoon tea box of finger sandwiches, scones with jam, and macaroons. I'm beginning to like this more and more, actually. So let's continue. Now, the next one is the long-range Club World business class passenger will be offered a box with a salad, sandwich, cheese and crackers, and dessert, which honestly doesn't seem very filling. So apart from raiding the in-flight snack bar, you might want to bring some of your own food if you're flying out of T5 at Heathrow. They recommend the Pret-a-Manger outlet at the centre of the terminal. The next one down is on overnight flights. Club World travellers will wake to a cold breakfast with yoghurt, granola, a muffin, and a few other items. Doesn't say what they are. The next one says shorter club business class flights will see a cold snack, which on daytime flights will typically include a sandwich, a small appetizer, and a small dessert. So that's what I might be having on the 2nd of January. On July, a couple of weeks' time. Next one down is the long-range premium economy, which is the World Traveller Plus. And economy World Traveller boxes will be the same and usually include a small sandwich or croissant, an appetizer, and dessert. But of course, with the UK now enforcing a mandatory 14-day quarantine and many of BA's most popular routes slashed or suspended, it remains to be seen how many of these meal boxes it'll be handing out on any flight. Well, I'm not so sure about that. I say we have moved on a little bit from that, so maybe we'll have to see. But I'm going to give one of those a try, and I'll have to do my own unboxing on the flight and describe it all. But I've got to say, actually, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So, but I wouldn't have minded a steak or something, or some, fries or something like that. But that's probably a bit optimistic.
Like that steak we had in the Club World on the way home from Dubai now.
Business, wasn't it? Eh?
Yeah.
On that 7-4.
Actually, point to note, guys, and I think you'll probably agree with me with this story. They look good, but with this whole green packaging, blah 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 blah, there's a shed load of packaging involved with all those.
Yeah, there is, isn't there? Yeah. It'll be interesting. I mean, what they've got to do it somehow. They're trying to prevent contact with the crew, aren't they? That's obviously safety first and all the rest of it. So it is got to go into some sort of packaging somehow. But yeah, it will generate a lot. So I'm going to give that a bash in a couple of weeks' time and see.
Full review, Nev.
Yes,
full review.
Or maybe perhaps what I'll do, I won't actually eat it on the plane at all, but I'll bring it home and I'll do the unboxing live on air, including eating noises as well. Would that be good?
That'll be very exciting. Absolutely. While we're talking about BA, Micah has been in touch. He's saying that a first-class round trip ticket on BA from the USA to the UK is around about $10,000. If you're travelling with a companion, that's around $20,000. And for all that, all you're going to get is a cold lunch and no alcohol.
Yeah, it's sounding less appealing.
Indeed.
By the minute.
And just to top that up, he says, when does it become cost effective to fly with PIP with SafeJets? That's a serious question.
Well, if you want your food and your alcohol and excellent piloting, of course, that's the way to go.
Do we get podcasts a discount with SafeJets?
We don't know.
It's worth a try.
Let's find out. Yeah.
I mean, Pip's in the chat room. We could ask him, couldn't we? Yeah.
Pip, do we get a family discount thing with SafeJets? Just put it out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at about a £60 return from Heathrow to Edinburgh. If you can manage that, Pip, that'll be nice.
If you can manage that, it would be amazing. Yeah, definitely do that. Oh dear, never mind.
Anyway, well, that's food for thought.
That is. And that is where we bring the commercial news segment to a close. So enjoyed that. That was some good stories there, guys. Well done. We have got a very special part of the show coming up next. So for those of you guys who are in lockdown and you kind of wanted to have a little bit of something different to listen to, we thought we'd create a new segment for the show, which Matt and Captain Al have put together. So Matt, what have we got to look forward to?
Well, I think the best thing we can do, really, as I've got so many buttons to press, is shall we have a listen and then we'll talk about it afterwards?
Ooh.
Hey guys, so welcome to a new segment where the object of the exercise is to debunk a few of the myths involving aircraft. As everybody knows, I'm a bit of a very much a novice and also a bit of a nervous flyer, and I thought we would perhaps use this as an opportunity to get a few of those questions answered that people might have about flying in general, and I can't think of anyone better to have these conversations with than the man who essentially, with a bit of help from my friend Owen, managed to get me in the air all those years ago to go over to the States. So it gives me great pleasure to say hello, Captain Al.
Hello, Matt. And what would you give right now to be back in the air?
Yeah, weirdly, I actually, yeah, I am. Even I'm weirdly missing it right now. It's just more because it's weird, isn't it? Now that it's not there, I kind of wish it was, but yeah, yes. There we are. So now, actually, interestingly enough, this leads into my first question for you, actually. So I was having a family Zoom call a couple of Sundays ago, and really that's what spurred this on. And we were talking about going to visit my auntie who lives in Northern Ireland. And one of the things that my Uncle Rob said during that conversation is, I don't really fancy getting on board one of those aluminium tubes, breathing in everybody else's air. And really, my first question in this little series of segments is, how do the air systems actually work in most aircraft? Is it filtered? Are people really recycling? Basically breathing in everybody else's air?
Okay, well, let's take a couple of minutes to go back a little bit. So, the air that we breathe in the cabin is the same air that we would breathe outside of the aircraft. It's nothing particularly special. But we do have to do a few special things as the aeroplane climbs, because as we probably all appreciate, as we go above about 10 to 14,000 feet, depending on our health, it becomes more and more difficult. Just one myth, it's not that there's less oxygen the higher up you go, It's just that the molecules are further spread out. So the proportion of oxygen is exactly the same as it is everywhere else on planet Earth. So what we have to do is we have to pressurize the cabin so that everybody can keep breathing, because it's not too good if we take everybody flying, they all pass out, passing 14,000 feet and die. So what we do is we have to pressurize the cabin. How do we do that? Well, we pump large amounts of air into it, and we get the cabin, up to a point where there's more air going in than can come out. So we create a positive pressure. And as the aeroplane climbs up to 38,000 feet, the cabin is held at around about 8,000 feet. Now, people will say, why is it not at sea level? Well, it would have to be a lot thicker to do that, because the pressure would be phenomenal. If we increase the thickness of the aircraft structure, then it's heavy and therefore would be too difficult to fly. So 8,000 feet is the happy compromise. So where does that air come from? Well, it comes from the air conditioning packs. And what we do is we take air that has come from the outside, comes part of the way through the engine. So you know that big fan at the front of the engine? Well, that sucks air in. And it is just a fan. There's nothing particularly clever about the front of it, although that's where most of the thrust comes from. So we take some of the air that fan is sucking in, and then we put it through some compressors and turbines. We heat it up, cool it down, squeeze it a bit, and then we feed that air into the cabin. And what happens is that is fresh air from outside. Now, as we get higher and higher, the air becomes less and less moist. And therefore, if we didn't have some form of moisture control, the air would be extremely dry. And if you've ever been out into the desert or somewhere where the air is incredibly dry, you will find that you dehydrate significantly, and clever bits of your body, like your sinuses, will dehydrate, and it becomes very, very uncomfortable. So it's not really practical to carry large buckets of water around and sprinkle it around the cabin to hydrate the cabin to increase the humidity. But what we can do is we can recycle some of the air back into the cabin. And this is where the myth comes from. So the first thing is that any air that we're going to recycle goes through a very clever filter. It's a HEPA filter. It's exactly the same sort of filters that they have in hospitals. So we put it through a filter. That filter removes more than 99.9% of the particles within it. And that includes things like bacteria, virus, much, much larger particles like dust. And then we put that back with the fresh air into the cabin. Now, here's something else to consider. In an aircraft, we're changing the air in the cabin about every 2 or 3 minutes. So the air that you're exposed to now will be completely removed from the cabin in 3 minutes' time. Now, if you compare that to sort of a hospital operating theatre, they move the air around about every 10 minutes, and an office probably about every 20 minutes. And your $64 million question is probably going to be, how much of the air is recycled? Well, as you probably know, I'm a bit of an Airbus guy, so I can speak for the Airbus, and it's less than half of the air is recycled. And remember, it's filtered air. So what we're trying to do is to create the best possible environment on the aircraft and to try to make it as clean as possible. And all this took place all before COVID-19. So the only reason that people tend to think, oh, I was on an aeroplane and the guy next to me was coughing and then I got the cold, is in exactly the same way as if you were on a bus or in an office or they were in your living room. If the germs are spread person to person, there's not a lot we can do about it. But I can assure you those germs do not pass through the filters.
Wow. So there's essentially some of the air that's in the cabin does actually remain in remain in the cabin, but it is essentially very highly filtered before it goes back.
Yeah, so it's recirculated. So around about 60 to 70% in the air of the air in the cabin has come from the outside. We'll call that fresh air. And then around about 40 to 30% is recirculated air. And as part of that recirculation process, it goes through these HEPA filters. HEPA standing for High Efficiency Particulate Arresters.
Oh, wow. Okay. So these filters, I mean, how often are they changed?
So they're changed when the aircraft goes in for a maintenance check, which is usually every few hundred hours or so. What is happening right now with COVID is that the filters have been changed on a more frequent basis. Now, obviously at the moment, aircraft aren't flying as much as they would have done prior to COVID. So it's not that it's changed on a daily, weekly basis. It's a function of the number of flying hours.
Captain Al, thank you.
My pleasure.
There you are. First segment.
Oh, that was informative, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, that was the object of the exercise. And guys, genuinely, if you have any questions, we're wanting to aim this more at you as a passenger. So we don't want to go into the nuts and bolts of engines and all that kind of thing. So we're purely thinking from the passenger focus. Obviously, if you want to get
episode 20.
Yeah, you're right, indeed. Well, if you want to get into the nuts and bolts of it, I mean, because obviously Al is on, the Plane Safety Podcast, and they talk about exactly these sort of things in much more detail. Obviously, the more technical elements about it, obviously, on there. But so this is very much aimed at like people like me, basically, who don't know a great deal about aviation, but are intrigued to know how things work on the aircraft when they're flying about. So if you've got any ideas or questions that you would like me to put to Captain Al in our marvellous news segment, then please either email them into us or pop them in the chat room now so that we can get them in the show notes. And next time we have our recording session, we'll make sure that it's included. I think we agreed that we're going to be learning about lightning strikes next week.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. No, it's a great idea, Matt. I'll tell you, honestly, really good. Hats off to you. It's a good idea to do this because obviously it is questions that people do ask, and it might be questions that people ask even when they're sitting there in their comfy passenger seat waiting to take off. It's those questions that go around in your head. And yeah, quite rightly, Matt, you should ask these questions, especially to someone as knowledgeable as Captain Al.
I mean, we're getting lots of helpful questions, like from Chris Griggs, who's saying, so where do they inject the mind control chemicals? Obviously, that is an option. But
wait for the chemtrail questions.
Oh, no. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, seriously, guys, we'd love to have some of your questions answered. So podcast at planetalkinguk.com. That's podcast at planetalkinguk.com. Or then pop them in the chat room and we can get them in our little show notes bit to decide what we're going to talk to him about next. But we'd love your help and feedback in making what I think could be a really good segment. So anyway, I enjoyed it. Nothing else, it gave me a good excuse to have a chat with Captain Al.
It's always nice to speak.
Exactly, indeed.
And he's in the chat room as well. So.
Is he? Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Captain Al. Great job.
Yeah, brilliant.
So we're going to move on to the next part of the show then. As always, it's the grey stuff section, or the military segment of the show. Obviously, Armando's not with us, but we've got some stories to get through. So if everyone is ready,
yes,
let's go. So the first story on the military segment this week, it's a sad story. It's always horrible to hear these stories. And it's also one that's local to me and Matt here. This is on the bbc.co.uk website. And most of you will have heard of the US Airforce fighter jet, which crashed into the North Sea. Now, the F-15C Eagle from the 48th Fighter Wing at RAF Lakenheath in Suffolk crashed shortly after 9:30 BST while on a training mission. The wreckage of the aircraft, which was thought to have crashed 74 nautical miles off the East Yorkshire coast, was found, and the cause of the crash is yet currently unknown. Colonel Will Marshall of the 48th Fighter Wing, RAF Lakenheath, said pilot of the downed F-15C Eagle from the 48th Fighter Wing has been located, he said, and confirmed deceased. They've not released the name of the pilot until after the next of kin. Obviously, they always would do that. But he did say that it's a tragic loss for the 48th Fighter Wing community, and our deepest condolences, he said, go out to the pilot's family and the 493rd Fighter Squadron. So the F-15C, a single-seater air defense fighter, is a modern jet that has been used by the US Air Force since 1979. RAF Lakenheath is the largest US Air Force base in England and home to its only F-15 wing fighter wing set in Europe. It's also worth noting as well, like I said, that where me and Matt live here is very, very close to where these guys train. So we tend to see these in the air above us quite a bit, which we have this week especially. So the identity of the pilot, which has been released on the 16th of June, and with the next of kin notifications complete, they did confirm that the pilot killed in the incident was First Lieutenant Kenneth Allen, Assistant Chief of Weapons and Tactics for the 493rd Fighter Squadron. Allen first arrived at the 48th Fighter Wing in February 2020 and is survived by his wife and parents. They said that we are deeply saddened by the loss of Lieutenant Allen and mourn with his family and fellow reapers in the 493rd Fighter Squadron. A tremendous outpouring of love and support and emotion from all our communities has been a ray of light in this time of darkness, said Colonel Will Marshall, 48th Fighter Wing Commander. It's incredibly sad news. I remember that when this news broke, and actually the morning that this broke, I remember this was an incredibly foggy morning here, especially where we live here, but it was probably very foggy as well on the coast, not far from where this happened. But it's always sad, isn't it, guys, when you see these stories, especially when these guys are, on training missions away from base.
I was I don't know why I thought this at the time when I heard about it. I was fully expecting the rescue service. Oh yeah, well, we found the pilot, and
you assume they'll just eject, don't you? In these situations,
but no, it's tragically not. And the ladies and gentlemen of the military, whether it's US, British, or whoever, they do a tremendous job. And we must always remember that they are in fast jets, and things can go wrong sometimes. It's terribly sad. Awful.
It's worth a note, actually, to honour the fallen aviator. F-15E Strike Eagles from the 494th Fighter Squadron conducted a missing man formation, a time-honoured tradition for the Liberty Wing Airmen that is no longer with us. So,
yeah. So the next article then is, well, you know how the military and commercial aviation actually like using lots of acronyms all the time. You can't have enough of them in aviation, can you? I thought our industry, audiovisual and video, used lots of acronyms, but no, the military far exceed mine. So bear with us, because I'm going to go through some of these, if that's okay. But the article is quite interesting in itself. It says that the fact that GPS is vulnerable to jamming, spoofing, or physical threats is widely known. What's less well recognised is the variety of types of GPS that you can get. So the alternative position, navigation and timing solutions, which is the acronym is APNT, includes passive approaches like using computer vision, which are essentially cameras, star tracking or terrain following navigation solutions. While it's useful when GPS is interrupted, they are limited by the visual environment, weather and the lack of landmarks over water. That's where a new magnetic anomaly navigation technique, MAGNEV, being researched at the Air Force Institute of Technology, AFIT, may come in. Air Force Major Aaron J. Kanchani, an assistant professor of electrical engineering at AFIT, has been at work designing algorithms for MAGNEV flight testing for several years. Realistic testing has also already taken place in limited fashion using private survey aircraft. But in September, MAGNEV sensors and software will be flown on Air Force Test Pilot School, AFTPS, F-16s over a special test range adjacent to Edwards Air Force Base in Nevada. Features of the Earth's magnetic field differ across the globe, not unlike the variation in topography over land. Like land features, they remain fairly stable over time, so you can use them as landmarks for navigation. But unlike land features, they can also be found in the oceans, which cover 2/3 of the Earth's surface. This could make them highly relevant to the military, which operates at sea at least as often as over land. The inherent difficulty of jamming or interfering with MAGNEV makes it even more appealing. In simple terms, magnetic anomaly navigation works by using magnetometer sensors, which measure differences in magnetic field as one passes by them. These variations can be compared with known features in magnetic field maps and can then be interpreted to determine the position. Kanchani often gets asked about how accurate MAGNAV is. The reference point is always the 3-meter accuracy of GPS. One of the worst things people do when they discuss alternative PNT is to pretend that everything needs GPS accuracy, he says. In ideal conditions, MAGNAV could be accurate to 10 meters, but different conditions and lower quality magnetic maps may mean it's only good for 1 kilometer accuracy. That doesn't faze Kanchani or likely the Air Force, who points out that there's a whole slew of Department of Defense missions that do not require GPS accuracy, likely a significant higher percentage than those which do. These have already been fitted and flight tested with dimensions no bigger than a US quarter in some cases. They're very size, weight and power friendly. Since they're used in commercial applications, they're also off the shelf, and the magnetic maps they can utilize already exist within the industry, the military and government agencies. The upcoming MAGNAV tests on Airport Test Pilot Flight School, F-16s, appear to be an opportunity of convenience for both AFIT and AFTPS. Successful testing could channel more effort and research funding into MAGNAV and offer the US another alternative PNT system in addition to non-GPS satellite systems. That was hard work, I must say. So if you just want a review of all of those acronyms that I went through, APNT, Alternative Position, Navigation and Timing Solutions, PNT, Position, Navigation and Timing, AFIT, Air Force Institute of Technology, AFTPS, Air Force Test Pilot School, and MAGNAV, Magnetic Anomaly Navigation. So if you wanted an article with the most number of acronyms, I think we've probably achieved that, don't you?
I think MAGNEV sounds better.
I prefer that because it's easier for me to say.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
There's so we got there.
Yes, there is. But interesting technology, isn't it? Very interesting. So just one final military bit of news then. It's on navalnews.com, and it says that the decks of HMS Queen Elizabeth are roaring with the sound of F-35 Lightning jets as the famous Dam Buster Squadron landed on the aircraft carrier for the first time this week. Pilots, engineers, cyberspace and mission support staff from 617 Squadron, the UK's operational strike squadron, embarked the carrier over the weekend during a quick stop in Portsmouth for supplies before the aircraft themselves landed on board. It marks the first time that 617 Squadron, famously known as the Dam Busters, has fully joined HMS Queen Elizabeth as the UK prepares to deploy the next generation of squadron of fighter aircraft to operate from the sea. The F-35 jets that landed on board this week will be the same aircraft that will sail next year with the ship for her maiden Global Carrier Strike Group 21 deployment. The 2021 deployment will see the Royal Navy Carrier Strike Group sail in the Mediterranean Sea, the Persian Gulf, and end up in the Pacific. The ship will also carry 24 F-35 F-35B jets, including US Marine Corps aircraft, in addition to a number of helicopters. The F-35s began initial pilot qualification period right away. The jets will then exercise defending carrier groups by maintaining combat air patrols, launching and flying strike missions on simulated land targets, and being held on deck to launch at very short notice. So that's a pretty interesting piece of news, isn't it? And Commander Mark Sparrow, who's the commanding officer of 617 Squadron, says, "We are excited to be on board the carrier and we've been training hard to be here. This is the first time that the ship's operational squadron has embarked and worked together. The F-35 brings next generation capability to UK defence through its ability to find, destroy or avoid enemy air defences and enemy aircraft whilst gathering intelligence data." So that's a really great piece of news, that, isn't it? Really good. Yeah.
Yeah, great little video with that that's on there. But I was lucky to catch one of these came over last weekend.
Oh, you did? You take it? You did, didn't you?
Yes, I literally grabbed the big lens, whacked it on the Canon body, and managed to grab a few shots of him as he flew over on his own, single, on his own F-35. But it was quite good to see, because it's not very often you get to catch them flying over, because you normally hear them and there's normally so much cloud cover, you don't see them. But that's a good story. So the last story on the military segment this week, and this one is all about options for hiring private aerial refueling companies. So the US Air Force has released a report it sent to Congress early this year about how it might make use of private contractors to provide aerial refueling services to support various non-combat training and testing activities. The service has been exploring this for years now, but there's been an increase in impetus for doing so, given significant issues with the K-46A Pegasus tanker aircraft. The Air Force has said it will not use those aircraft for day-to-day refueling operations of any kind, except in an emergency, until serious problems get fixed, which will take years. This has raised concerns about a tanker gap, as its aging KC-135R, which we also had come over here last week, and KC-10A fleets become more difficult to operate and maintain. Air refueling is a critical capability which sustains joint force readiness and enables global power projection to support all national air defence strategy mission areas, the report says in its executive summary. And a recent testimony by commander of the Ustranscom, blimey, that's a mouthful, and it indicates the aerial refueling fleet is their most stressed capability, and a number of readiness concerns and degraded readiness of the existing aerial refueling force, delays in delivery of capable K-46s, plan for structure reductions of the KC-10s and KC-135s, and forecasted increases in aerial refueling demand indicate a critical and deepening shortfall in taskable aerial refueling aircraft and air crews, especially over the next 5 to 7 years. Transcom did initial market research in 2018 before consulting directly with the AMC. The two organizations established the Commercial Air Refueling Working Group to further explore available options in 2019. That year, after multiple discussions with representatives from the private industry, the working group crafted 5 possible contracting options, which are as follows. The first proposed option is to simply have contractors fly Air Force tankers as part of government-owned contractor and operated arrangements, or COGO. This is a concept the US military as a whole routinely employs for various activities, including aerial intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance operations. In this particular case, the main challenge would be the time necessary to certify contractors to operate US government-owned aircraft. On top of that, it's not clear if this plan would be viable at all, given that primary issue and lack of available tankers. Well, there's plenty at Brunting Thorpe, to be fair. They're all TriStars, as well as the age of the aircraft in service now. The second potential course of action to report outlined is to sell or lease surplus aerial refueling tankers to private contractors. At present, there are 14 KC-135s at the boneyard at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Arizona, as well as numerous older KC-135 models, though the exact state of these aircraft is unclear. Additional KC-135Rs, as well as KC-10s, could become available to private companies when and if the Air Force is able to proceed with its retirement plans for those aircraft. The Air Force's third proposal is to recommend contractors purchase surplus boom-equipped tankers from foreign governments, particularly those that the service previously facilitated the sale of through the Foreign Military Sales, or FMS, program. Since Air Force Material Command was technically the original purchaser of the aircraft, primarily KC-135s delivered to various allies and partners around the world, they are already being certified to meet these standards. The fourth potential course of action the Air Force outlined is hiring private contractors to fly non-combat aerial refueling missions using commercial aircraft converted into boom-equipped tankers. This, of course, would require those companies to buy suitable aircraft, modify them, and certify them to meet the service's standards. The war zone previously learned that a small contractor called Bison Aerospace and Defense explored what it might take to convert an Airbus A310 into a boom-equipped tanker, but it's unclear what, if anything, ever came from that effort. So they've reached out in the past without getting a response, unfortunately, from these. The fifth and final potential option would be for contractors to acquire brand new tankers from aircraft manufacturers. Oh, that would impress Airbus. The Air Force would stipulate that these would be existing commercial off-the-shelf designs to help keep costs low, but the service still estimated the average cost for these aircraft, which aerial fueling companies would have to pay up front, would be around $300 million each. The cost per flying hour for the solutions range from $15,000 to $27,000, but could drop between $12,000 and $15,000 once the contract capability was established. The report says, but it does not specify which options the cost estimates apply to, and commercial contractors desire a long-term contract structure of possibly up to 10 years in order to obtain necessarily return on the investment. The report also reveals that the present costs of the Air Force of an exorbitant $98,000 per flight hour to operate the KC-46s, despite their limited capabilities, though the cost per flying hour projections for the KC-46 will decrease as the program progresses to a steady state. By comparison, the KC-135Rs, which we have lots of flying around here in East Anglia, cost per flight hour to operate is $26,000, while that of the KC-10 is $23,000. There's also another story that follows on from this, which is regarding the KC-46, which also came online this week, and that was regarding the fact that they've found more rubbish, or trash, as our American listeners would know, in the new refueling tankers. So we've obviously had a few stories like this in the past, so they're obviously still finding rubbish within the fuel tanks of these new KC-46As, which are coming off the assembly line, which is kind of worrying, really, because you think that
more can we take about the KC-46 in terms of its rather treacherous journey. It's just so much that's gone on with that aircraft, isn't it?
It just worries me that they don't just get a Hoover and just Hoover these aircraft out before they, you know.
Totally. God.
Am I missing something? Do they?
Okay, you need a big Hoover. I get that. Industrial grade, but that's fine. So yeah. But no, the KC-46, isn't it funny? You know, obviously based on a Boeing 767, a lot of modifications that goes with it. So you've got the basis of one of the most successful commercial aircraft that's ever flown, really, in terms of its role and its flexibility in the commercial world. Try and stick it into the military world with all the stuff that you need to go with it, and it's really had a lot of problems, isn't it?
It's a shame. It's a shame. Yeah, and it's costing them a lot of money as well, which they can't afford to lose with the MAX being the way it is. There we go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that is where we bring the military segment to a close. Matt, are you still with us?
He's not still with us. He's gone to see a man about a dog, I think.
He's got to powder his nose. That's fine.
That's fair enough. Well, so coming up next, we thought, we at the beginning of the show, we talked about the aerobility Armchair air show, didn't we? And we thought that you might like to see the segment that Matt did with Nick from Airability. This goes back to the Biggin Hill Air Show of 2019, which we very much enjoyed. So why don't we have a look at that interview, because it's really interesting.
So I'm here with Nick. This is the Airability British Flying Charity. So tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Myself, I'm a retired commercial pilot, and at the end of my flying career, I renewed my instructor's rating and
how are you doing on time?
Airability and began instructing there on a volunteer basis.
So I've been reading some of the literature here this morning. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. Tell us a little bit about what Airability does.
Airability itself, it's a flying charity, so we'll take any kind of disability and we'll get that person into an airplane, give them a flying experience, and it might be just a one-off trip. It might well be going for a license. I mean, we put through probably at least, I'd say, 5 PPLs a year.
Oh wow! So it's more than just like a getting them in the air type thing. It's there's an end goal to it if that's what they want.
There can be, yes, whatever people want to make of it. And of course, a lot of our clients are military people that have been injured, lost limbs, and that sort of thing. We've got 5 aircraft altogether, 4 of whom have been adapted with hand controls, so that wheelchair users are able to fly them and even get licenses.
Oh, wow.
By just flying with hands.
Okay, so I mean, obviously that's an expensive thing to do to have the adapt. So what sort of planes have you got? What is the fleet?
Yes, we have 3 Piper Warriors, all of which are adapted. We've got a 2-seat aircraft, a Tecnam aeroplane, Italian built, and that's actually the first aircraft ever that's been factory built for disabled people with hand controls built into the airplane.
Wow.
And then we've got a 6-seat airplane which isn't adapted, but we use that for giving experience flights and for touring. I mean, we do a lot of touring with our disabled pilots all around Europe and that sort of thing. And the Cherokee 6 is really handy for, piling in wheelchairs and hoisting equipment that we need to take with us.
So you're here with another company that are helping you with this stand, you were saying?
Yes, we're also we're sharing the stand with the Barders Bus Company, and their main claim to fame for this year, of course, is that they are the first disabled display team that has ever been in the UK. So all of the pilots in the Barders Bus Company display team are disabled pilots.
Wow. So your background, obviously you're a keen aviator. I mean,
sure.
What sort of led you to this point here? So you're saying you were a private pilot?
I started as a private pilot. I used to work for British Airways for many years, but I've spent most of my flying career flying business jets. So VIPs, pop stars and film stars, that sort of thing. And coming to the end of that, it was actually one of the cabin crew that I used to fly with, was working already with Airability on a volunteer basis. And she said to me, just pop in and say hello. Come in and have a cup of tea.
That's how all these things start.
That was 6 years ago, and yeah. I'm still here. So and loving it.
Well, as I say, you're clearly loving it. I mean, you can see through the enthusiasm and everything. It just
the idea. I mean, a lot of people, even able-bodied people, many people think I couldn't possibly fly an airplane, but take somebody who's disabled, and that's multiplied.
Yeah, you can't help but feel more challenged by that.
Absolutely. But my experience as an instructor, when I get somebody who's severely disabled, get them airborne, then say, right, you have control, and they are actually flying the airplane. Wow. That sense of joy that they get from that, I get to, experience that time and time again.
I bet. Well, I mean, it sounds like a very rewarding programme. So tell us a little bit about how people get in touch if they want to get involved and how they could perhaps donate.
Yeah, sure. We're based at Blackbush Airport, and we're very, very welcome and opening. Anybody that's driving by is welcome to come in and have a cup of tea. But we've got a website.
Yeah, although be careful with that, because otherwise you could be there for 6 years if that's right.
Yeah, but that's all right. But that's everybody, even the cleaning lady that cleans the office in the evening. She said, "I'd leave this place till last." She said, "It's the happiest place that I work at." Yeah. So it's that sort of atmosphere we have. We get quite a lot of big sponsorship from Boeing, from the National Air Traffic Service. British Airways even.
Oh, brilliant.
So, we get sponsorship from a wide range, and we've got buckets here, so people that come by at the show today, they're very welcome to buy our merchandise and and donate.
Fantastic. So there's a website, I assume?
There is a website, airability.com. Just have a look at it. It's got the telephone contacts there. And the main message is it doesn't matter how severe is the disability, we can accommodate it.
Get you in the air somehow.
Yeah. The only time I've ever had to turn somebody away where there were possibly unpredictable behavioural problems. But, you know, I've had three students totally blind to come along for an aviation experience.
Wow.
So, you know, there is no limit.
It really is open to all.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time, Nick. It sounds like a fascinating project, and we all wish you the best of luck with it.
Thanks very much. Right, my pleasure.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And memories of Biggin Hill 2019 as well. But it just shows what fantastic work the guys and girls at Airability do, isn't it, Carlos?
Yeah. It's awesome to see, you know, that everyone can kind of get the chance to do, what they should be able to do, really. And it's always nice.
Do you remember those times when we could go to air shows? Do you remember that?
It's a distant memory. It's a very distant memory.
Quite, indeed. There we are. Never mind. All part of the fun.
That was good. That was, Matt. That was a really good day. And
it was.
For those of you who didn't, who might have missed those, if you go back to our previous shows from last year with the Biggin Hill footage and the interviews we've done, we had a damn good weekend.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. And they spoilt us rotten as well, didn't they? They really did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have we possibly got an Armando? He's kind of joined us, ish. He's about to board a shuttle, I think, somewhere off on an aircraft.
Wow.
Not
hey guys, this is a very quick hello. I am at the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport about to board my shuttle back to my car. So I will be listening in the background.
Yay! We miss you, Armando.
It's a shame I wasn't. I miss you guys too. Shame I wasn't on there today. I'm sure it was a great show. I'm sure it was the best ever.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Well,
the joys of live, hey?
Young man, yes.
The joys of live, I know.
He looks so professional. Doesn't he look so smart?
I know.
He does.
I know. I mean, for so many reasons, he always puts us to shame, let's be honest.
I know.
So we're going to start to wrap up the show, but we're looking to the week ahead, and we're going to, for the benefit of those of you guys and girls who have tuned in this evening watching on YouTube, and obviously for those of you who listen to the audio show, for next week, we have managed to get a guest on the show from the series which is currently airing on Quest TV. For those of you who may watch Quest TV, I know it's on the Freeview here. I don't know if you can get that in the States. Probably someone in the chat room will be able to put me right or not. But next week on the show, we've got the guys from the Plane Reclaimers joining us on the show. Now, these guys are one to watch for sure on their channel on YouTube. And they're the guys who dismantle commercial airliners and recycle all the various parts of the airlines. So it's they're going to be on the show next week, so that should be fun. But what's everyone up to next week? Mr. Bones, what's going on in the world?
Oh, well, I'm going to be driving my car because I'm going to see a couple of customers, which I know is just, how about that for a concept, you know? So I'll be going up to we'll be going sort of York area there and back in a day in the car, and then some other bits and pieces later on in the week. But yes, I'm hoping. Well, it's going to be hot weather next week. We're going to be up to 30 degrees, they tell me, early part of next week. So that'll be a bit warm, won't it?
I think you're right there. It's going to be very warm.
And Mr. Smith, Matt, what are you up to next week? I'm guessing, obviously, you've got lots of kind of audio-visual work to do in the studio?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Well, as I say, somebody sat down and recorded an alarming amount of segments with Captain Al one night. So, yeah, there's quite a bit of work to be done with that. Al, Nev very kindly sort of helped me put some stingers and stuff together. So, yeah, but no, I'm looking forward to bringing a few more of our new segment in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and don't forget, guys and girls watching, if you've got some questions that you want Matt to ask Al, those questions that you want the answer to. That seat, you want the answer to when you're sitting in that seat, looking out that window in seat 1A if you're Nev, and you want to know the answer, just let us know. podcast@planetalkinguk.com. Next week, I don't know what we're doing next week. I'm a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of gardening. We've had a new fence fitted, so it may be some painting going on next week for me in the back garden, or may not be.
Painting in the back garden? Do you mean your fence?
Yes, the fence. Yes, okay. yeah.
Make it sound like you were painting some kind of mural. That was what I was.
Well, I would love to do that on the fence, but I don't think that would go down too well with Gemma. So
no, indeed, she likes things.
The painting of the fence will do. But,
yes. Okay. Any brownie points scored.
I shall also be doing lots of simming next week. I think I've been trying to dabble in the world of trying to land a 737-800 into random airports over the globe, so I'll be doing that next week. But also don't forget as well, everyone who's listening, that all-important Zoom call tomorrow night. It's going to be a kind of, Matt, what do we say? It's a kind of meet down the pub.
Absolutely, that's the plan. Yeah, absolutely. As I say, we might have a bit of a quiz as well, so because we can spotlight videos and things like that, so we can do some I think, they're quite traditional with you, aren't they? A little picture round of some description.
Yes.
So we'll have to put that.
I'll put a picture round together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've worked out how on Zoom you can pin the master video. So it'll be fun.
Oh, good. I'll send you a file full of stuff.
Oh, goody! Can't wait. Yeah.
Yay. So email the show if you haven't already done so. If you're watching the live YouTube stream, if you email the show, podcast@planetalkinguk.com, let us know you want to join us tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. That's 7 p.m. UK time. And Matt will email you, or our producer John will email you a link to that Zoom call. You can join us, and we'll all share one of these, or 3.
Quite, absolutely.
15.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes. So, it's been a fantastic show as always. We're going to say a big thanks to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room tonight. All the usual family members in there. So thanks for joining us. And also a big thanks to everyone who downloads the show through all the various podcast kind of streaming platforms. And also don't forget, if you do download the show through iTunes and you're listening to us now, if you could take yourself onto iTunes and give us a little review, that would be absolutely fantastic. Also, don't forget our website, allthews.planetalkinguk.com. You can find all the details about us, find out about who we are, what we're doing, and what we love, and also the all-important store button where you can click on and grab yourself a PTUK t-shirt, which I know a few people in the chat room do have their own ones as well. And also that WhatsApp number, if you want your picture, your aviation themed picture on the green screen behind Matt in the PTUK studios, you can send that picture into +44 757 22 49166. You can also send audio messages into that number as well. If you want to send us some audio feedback, you can send those into there as well. And also on the website, don't forget as well, our Patreon and our PayPal links if you fancy donating a few pennies to the show. And I can announce actually that tonight, while we've been broadcasting the live show, that we've got a new Patreon donator who has joined us. So a big thanks to you. I know you're in the chat room, so thank you very much. And a big thanks to all our Patreon donators who donate to the show. We've invested in another new piece of kit, haven't we, Matt, here in the studio with me.
Absolutely. Finally, he's got a decent mic, everyone. We're very excited.
Yes, I've got a decent mic now after all this time. And it's I'm right in thinking, Matt, it's the same mic as what Armando uses in his studio.
Oh, very much so, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and several of the APG crew use it as well. That's why it was chosen. Ideal for the conditions to which you are sat in, shall we say.
Yes. And it's also going to be great for us to do outside interviews and stuff. So big thanks to everyone who helps through Patreon for that.
And PayPal.
And PayPal as well.
And the Amazon link.
PayPal. And the Amazon link, yes, which you'll be pleased to know, Matt, I did use twice this week.
Oh, very good. Absolutely.
Actually, on that, before we finish the show, Matt, have you had a look on Amazon yet to see what the
No, I'm too scared. I daren't. I'm so frightened about looking. I daren't.
I'm worried what Nev's been buying.
Yeah, well, this is it. Yeah, absolutely.
Nev, what have you been purchasing?
It's more what Captain Al might have been buying. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, that's probably more like it. Yeah.
So don't forget to join us next week for episode number 324. And don't forget as well, if you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, click that all-important subscribe button and subscribe to the show. So that's it for episode number 323. Have a great weekend, whatever you're doing. Stay safe and stay healthy, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you all again next Friday evening. So from me here in my studio, from Matt over in the PTUK studios, and from Nev over in the Nev Tech studios, take care. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.